Welcome to Dev Diary 97. We're going to be talking about technology progression in 2.0. And this is once again, and I cannot stress this enough, another big one. We've had FTL, we had fleet changes, the way claiming of other systems work, but we're going to see another major change in tech progression in 2.0 Cherry. And yes, it is in fact 2.0. Vindication was glorious. For this Dev Diary, obviously, like I already said, we're going to be talking about technological progression. First of all, like we mentioned last time around, is that when you start in Cherry, you will already have the basic weapons. You will have red lasers, mass drivers, nuclear missiles, deflectors, and armor. Right now in the game, if you're in pre-2.0, you generally get deflectors and armor from your first pirate incursion. So generally what you do is you get a fleet of enemy pirates, or generally about 170, 180 fleet power. You crush them, and you get your first foray into that type of technology. That is completely out of the door. Same thing with the picking of your initial starting weapons. That's completely going to change as well, with lasers, mass drivers, and missiles being available off the bat. This also includes the fact that missiles are moving towards torpedo slots. What this basically means is that corvettes, right at the start of the game, will have both hulls available. So you'll have your torpedo boat and your standard corvette available right at the start. Now, missiles themselves are already fairly powerful at the start of the game. It's a very good one, in my personal opinion, to start off, because there is literally no way to defend against it, especially until destroyers are being picked up, or at least researched, and no point defense becomes a thing. So for me, myself, nuclear missiles and stuff like that are a great starter when it comes to the game. Great range, etc. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of change there when it comes to your initial pick of what you want to put on your ships. Total damage, of course, damage output from mass drivers is generally a little bit higher, but missiles, they effectively cannot be dodged as of right now. So, first of all, several basic technologies are already available at the start of the game. So that's cool. Secondly, so for those of you who do not know, in the game right now, technology comes in certain tiers. You cannot see the tech tree. You get randomly assigned certain techs that you can research at the start of the game. Fair enough. However, what you probably didn't know is that you need to research a certain amount of a certain tier before you can get the research into the next tier. So, for instance, you need to research 3 or 4, or maybe even more, technologies in tier 2 before you get access to the technologies in tier 3. There's going to be some overhauling here. First off, we're going to have 6 different tiers of technology. 5 tiers for you, 1 tier for Fallen Empires, which you can also get. So right now, you have your basic technologies, say deflectors, etc., all the way up to technology level 4, with like mega engineering and stuff like that. This is going to change. First of all, tier 1 is going to have all the basic early game weapons, such as fusion, automatic exploration. That's a funny one, considering it used to be tier 3 when it first came out, robotic workers, etc. Then we have advanced early technology, which is cold fusion. Then basic, that's going to be antimatter, cruisers, that sort of thing. Advanced mid-game, as they're referring to it. 0-point power, battleships, empire capital. And then late-game technology, which is Ascension Theory, Mega Engineering, and the Repeatables. Basically all the amazing tech you get at the end of the game, so you can properly fit out your empire with everything that you need in order to become a power within the galaxy at large. So that is going to change. Also, there's going to be a large amount of new technologies added to the game, which basically handles all the new features, and this is the cool one. So we have wormhole stabilization, which we've already confirmed, but the next one is the one that I want to point out. We may actually get it now. It's been hyped since Heinlein. Space trading. We may actually get some proper space trading within the game with like trade routes and stuff like that. This is all speculation as of right now, but the words are there. Space trading is going to be added to the game in some sort of fashion. I think this is actually a lot bigger than the technological progression update in this Dev Diary. The fact that space trading itself is being mentioned is completely mind-blowing. We've been waiting for this since 1.3. It's pretty crazy. And basically, it allows you to use these new technologies, such as the new space fortresses. And there was a reference to a deep space BLACKSITE. So maybe you can get an area where you can take your Rowdy Pops, or Rowdy Pops even, and maybe put them down. I don't know. It's very interesting things here. So, deep space BLACKSITE's being alluded to. That's pretty interesting as well. Also, it looks like the general progression of ship components, that each upgrade is more significant. So right now what you have is, if you have a tier 1 weapon and you transition to tier 2, the difference is generally marginal, 10 to 15%. It's not all that great. That's going to be boosted. So red lasers is your starting weapon, as an example. Blue lasers is your secondary version. Blue lasers are approximately 30% stronger in total damage output than the red lasers. The only reason they do this is because the differences between the two tiers are marginal. But however, you're no longer going to get different types of techs after each other. So you cannot get like blue lasers into the purple lasers, for instance. You need to go through those tiers a little bit more effectively, so everything is spread out a little bit more. So you're not constantly in your ship designer and change out your different types of tech in order to and upgrading all your ships constantly. So that is one thing there. So the tech progression is going to be spread out a little bit more. And then, in addition, this also means that if you have a technological advantage, you cannot simply be countered by just massing ships. Obviously, you can mass ships, but if you have a technological advantage, you'll have an easier time overcoming the enemy, even if you're at a lower number, which, in combination with the fleet changes that were touched on last week, is actually going to have a little bit more impact. So you can maybe do more damage towards the enemy, even though you have less fleet power available. Then there is the advanced tier 6 technology, which I talked about a little bit earlier, for fallen empires. These are techs that I can imagine, stuff like the matter fabrication plant, the food plants, some Titan lasers maybe, who knows, anything like that. But the notion is here that they can only be attainable by scavenging the wrecks of fallen empire ships. And this is actually a really big deal, because it means that attacking a fallen empire early on, when you can, becomes a little bit more viable. Or even in a scenario where you're at a war, just to shoot a couple of their ships down, take their tech, and then run the hell out of there. Of course, if you destroy an empire, a fallen empire early on, there's a good chance that they will wake up in a awakened empire, at least if you have Utopia. So that is definitely a bit of a scary thing on that one. Then there is another thing. So I've been playing quite a lot recently with playing tall empires, and tall empires are all designed around the reduced cost in technology versus the technology penalty if you're playing wide. Basically, you want to tech up as fast as possible to attain a significant advantage over your enemy. There's going to be some changes in this type of workflow, because the star-based system is now a thing, and planets are not nearly as important as they are, especially when it comes to controlling space. It's no longer encouraged to have as few planets as possible whilst playing as wide as you can using space-based resources. It looks like they're going to be nerfing the one planet challenge ever so slightly, so I'm going to have to try that out once Cherry finally comes out. So what is going to change here is that empires that... One moment here, I quickly need to read this. Each owned system and colonized planet adds to your tech and unity costs, of course. Planets overall having less of an impact on tech costs than before. So planets no longer have the overall tech cost. Pops, hold on here, I think it's actually population. Yeah, population no longer creates any penalties for technology and unity. It's purely based on planets as well as late game technology progression. This means effectively that moving to a new planet that has a large amount of tiles and strategic resources like Betharian Stone is a lot more viable when it comes to playing tall, as the planets themselves no longer have the impact on the technology malice. So having a few large planets with a large population makes things a little bit more interesting. Obviously, there is going to be a sort of min-maxing situation where your planets are where the total amount of planets kind of become less interesting, and you still want to have large planets to get a lot of technology going, but still, this is an interesting change to say the least. This should not be taken as playing tall now being unfeasible. It definitely is not, especially if you have Utopia. You strictly no longer have to keep a few planets, but rather limiting the number of systems you expand to in order to benefit from lower tech and Unity penalties and the ability to maintain high ratio of upgraded star bases. So there you have it. A lot of changes coming out for technology progression in 2.0. And Dev Diary 97 is definitely talking about a couple of very interesting things. Of course, we have the changes in the way the technology tiering works, the way that started technology works, but for me personally, the mention even of space trading is just, it moistens the loins, so to speak. Very exciting stuff here. Very, very curious about that one. Space trading, fascinating. Next week, we're going to be talking about something that's being referred to as a little usability feature, but I think is going to have a major impact on the game, and that's called the Fleet Manager. We're going to have a proper fleet manager in the game. So for those of you who've played the Art of War expansion for Europa Universalis 4, you'll know what this means. You may be able to template your fleets and just build them as you go. Sounds like an exciting time. Speculation is all speculation, of course. We'll see when Dev Diary 98 comes out next week what this actually means. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. And until next time, take good care of yourselves. And as always, eat Shutter.